We are approaching the formation of real global economic system. We started as economic integration focused mainly to Europe. In the next step, some kind of integration inside of Europe formed between the northern and the southern pole. The next phase destroyed the feudal system by crisis of 14th century, and the first leading city, Venice, started to integrate the global economic system. The dimension of Venice-directed global economic system somehow reached the Indian Ocean via Red Sea. But the next step, in consequence of geographical discoveries, integrated the first triangle of global economic system between Europe, Africa and Americas. This was the first triangle. Later, after integration there is a chart over there. This is the first triangle, Europe and Africa and America. This is the first triangle. The second triangle, Europe, because Europe and the European leading cities integrated and directed this system, Asia and America. This is the double triangle of economic system under direction of Europe. On the time of Antwerp and in the time of Genoa, it's both of these triangles, not regularly, but function. The next chapter, the title of the next chapter, Trader of the World, we will focus to the former northern pole, Low Countries. Recently, this area named Belgium and the Netherlands. But historically, as I mentioned, it's a historical geographical area from boundary of Denmark until the area of Paris. It's much larger because the historical geographical region not the same like the countries, national states of recent time. Because it's very interesting to understand that a regional evolution of Europe and Africa and America not the same than the formation of boundaries of the state. Look at, for example, how many conflicts came from the artificial boundary in Africa, which made in the 19th century. It's not a real boundaries, it's artificial boundaries. It's a crossover, for example, grazing area of tribes made a lot of conflict, or Near East, same situation. Therefore, very important on the real cognition of the historical past, focused not only the state, but the regions too. Okay, look at Low Country. The key city of Low Country, Amsterdam. Who visited in Amsterdam yet? Yeah, it's quite typical because Amsterdam not a classical target of tourism. If somebody, for example, arrive to Europe, necessary to visit in Paris, in London, in Berlin, in Prague, but somehow Amsterdam it's not obviously an important target. But Amsterdam, I lived in Amsterdam for half year. By chance, I received a fellowship to Netherlands Academy of Sciences and receive a fellowship for half year. I have two favorites where I would like to live in the age of older age. The first one, the first favorite in the dimension of global city, Paris, unbelievable place. But the smaller dimension is Amsterdam. And because Hungary, it's in international comparison, a smaller country, much better the feeling in the Netherlands. Because almost the same dimension. Because in the, sorry for the citizen of great countries, but the people who socialized to smaller dimension and living in great country, there is an acrophobia, a social acrophobia somehow. Therefore, if I have a chance for that and for global warming and rising of sea level won't destroy this country, I would like to live at least some years in the Netherlands. Okay, look at Amsterdam. 17th century, this is the age of Amsterdam. It's a very interesting example because the dimension of the Netherlands, half of Hungary, approximately 40,000 square kilometers. But very interesting, there is a real dimension, spatial dimension, and somehow not intellectual, but international power. In international dimension, nobody knows, nobody think about the Netherlands, a small country, because the influence of to social sciences, generally the sciences to international life, it's very high. For example, in my socialization, probably I mentioned before that I am a football player. Recently I'm playing in 4 different football teams. During my childhood I socialized a classical style of the Dutch national team. It's total football. Each player play each position. Because in the traditional football, defender play only the back or the bottom of the field, and the forward it's sold to the adversary football team. It's fixed position, and this was the first, not the first, but one revolution of football. It's a great Dutch revolution. Each player played everywhere, even the goalkeepers. Goalkeepers run to the middle of the field very regularly. This is the generation of Johan Cruyff, who founded, for example, a style of not only the Oranje, this is the national team of the Dutch football team, but even FC Barcelona too. Okay, but this is a sub-chapter of the history of Amsterdam. But Amsterdam and the Netherlands, somehow it's between the national state, the territorial state, and the city-state. Why? Because on the heyday of Amsterdam, population, number of citizens of Amsterdam, it's 500,000, and whole of the population of the country is 2 million. Therefore, it's a little bit same situation even recently, a country outskirt of the capital. If somebody travel to Amsterdam, travel to the Netherlands, able drive across the whole of the country for 2 hours. It's a very, very small country, very, very small country. Somehow between the city-state and the territorial state on halfway. And connected very closely to the tradition of Antwerp, not so far. Recently it's a country of Belgium and Genoa equally. Okay, look at a short movie about Amsterdam, because majority of the audience never visited to Amsterdam.
Just over 1.2 million people, Amsterdam is the largest city in the Netherlands, a country most people know as Holland. This multicultural city warmly embraces tourists, with over 3.5 million people visiting each year. The Dutch are very tolerant and fun to talk to, and everybody speaks English. The heart of the city is so picturesque that it is like a historical open-air museum. district is an internationally protected heritage site. In the 17th century, Amsterdam was a center for world economy, and many of the canal houses and old warehouses date from this golden age. Some landmarks, such as the Oude Kerk in the red light district, even date back to the 13th century. Just a short walk from the central station is iconic Dam Square, built nearly 750 years ago. Its purpose gave the city its name, Amsterdam, a dam built around the river Amstel to protect it from an inland sea. The square is dominated by the Royal Palace. From its windows, you can see the National Monument, dedicated to the many Dutch victims of World War II. The dam also houses Madame Tussauds wax collection. The impressive wax collection combines humor with an insight into Holland's gripping history. Listen to fragments of Anne Frank's famous diary, or visit her old hiding place to understand what life was like for Jewish families during Nazi occupation. It's not surprising that Europeans call Amsterdam the Venice of the North. No less than 165 canals, crossed by 1,000 bridges, divide the compact city center. Forget about cars. The best way to see the city center is by foot, or, as the Dutch would say, just get on your bike. Alternatively, take the tram across the city to the Museumplein. Art and history lovers insist that you haven't seen Amsterdam if you haven't seen the paintings by the Dutch masters that are on display here. The Rijksmuseum focuses on Dutch painters from the Golden Age. But don't forget, there are over 1 million other artworks on display in this museum with 200 rooms. Located nearby is the Van Gogh Museum, dedicated to a poor but legendary 19th century painter. Sadly, he didn't live long enough to see his work become world famous. Witness the fine art of transforming rough stones into sparkling jewels in the Diamond Museum. For centuries, Amsterdam was the diamond polishing center of the world. A gentle 10-minute stroll northwest brings you to the popular Vondelpark. On sunny days, it bursts into life as locals and tourists alike come here to relax and people watch. If you're a beer lover, make your way over to the old Heineken Brewery. It is the place to sample one of the world's most popular lagers. Submerge yourself in the interactive Heineken experience. From the tulip-filled stalls of the Flower Market, follow the broad canal northeast to the New Market. In the old days, Dutch traders used to come here to weigh in their butter and cheese. Leaving the New Market, you can walk through Chinatown to the central station, or take a short detour to De Wallen, one of the world's oldest and most famous red light districts. Today, coffee shops and adult emporiums keep the anything-goes spirit of this neighborhood alive. As evening sets, head to the Leidseplein, a square that is buzzing with live music and nightlife. After dark, the canal district takes on a romantic air, the perfect backdrop for a moonlit walk before you retreat to your hotel. There is no other city like Amsterdam. With its seafaring history, charming gabled houses, remarkable art and cosmopolitan people, it is a place that you won't easily forget.
Okay, it's an unbelievable place. Sometimes it's named to the northern Venice, but the nature from Venice basically different. Amsterdam made on the side of river. Somebody know which is the river? Which is the river of Amsterdam? Amstel. If we are looking the formation of the name, Amsterdam. Amsterdam, it's close this river. But how formed Amsterdam? How became Amsterdam a port of the Northern Sea? The reason that a storm, a huge storm, which performed 1283, I remember, destroyed the dunes and the coast of Northern Sea, and they made a huge bay, Historically, this was the sea coast, and the long Amstel River, it's flew from the continental area to the direction of Northern Sea, and location of Amsterdam was a typical fishing village in the continent. And the storm of which happened 1283, destroyed the dam and made a Zuiderzee. Zuiderzee is very easy to translate. Zuiderzee, sea, Zuiderzee. And in consequence of disaster, good example, sometimes the disaster made a chance for example, this small continental village became a seaport and opened the international trade for the former village. Therefore, this disaster opened the way of development and recovery for this city. But historically, only a small village on the side of Amstel River. Okay, look at the story. This slide I showed to you some lecture before. General condition of low countries, danger of flood storm. We can see the Zuiderzee over there. Recently there is a recovery project, it's a Delta project, started in the 20th century, second half of the 20th century, but this is a consequence of huge disaster. Okay, danger of flood storm. 1/3 of the area under water level of Northern Sea. A large area under the sea level. Therefore, it's a continuous danger that it's a rainy period, a large natural lake formed inside of the continent. Low fertility of soil. It's very bad news. You remember, in normal situation, a normal proportion, 80 to 20. 80% of population should to be primary producer, peasant, and only 20% might be independent from primary production, nobleman and the citizen and the member of aristocracy, intellectuals, and so on and so. Only 20%. In this situation, so bad the fertility that not only 80 to 20, but 95 to 50. But a real situation, even the late Middle Ages, 50% of population primary producer and 50% is independent from primary production. How? The solution of this situation, high proportion of independent population, import of and transport of staple foods. Okay? Forms of adaptation. First one, water regulation. If possible, I told to you when I participated in a conference of engineers, water engineers, and discussed about the problem, what can do in the case of recent global warming, which made a rising of global water level, sea level, ocean level, with 1 meter until the end of 21st century. No problem for the Dutch water engineers, rise with 2 meters, the level of dams. No problem, because it's did for 1,000 years. Great experiences in this field. Textile industry. As I mentioned former time, in that time, if we are looking the traditional industry, 80% of traditional industry, a textile industry. Any other, it's only 20%. Therefore, a little bit the synonym of industry, the textile industry. Historically, Low Country was a core area of textile industry, somehow necessary to pay for the staple foods which imported from Baltic area. Fishery, very important compensatory food are fishes. Moreover, this is a Christian period. In the Christian world, very important, for example, in the fasting period. Recently we are in the fasting period, the Great Fast. It's possible, I told to you, the fasting period, it's very important in the point of view, save the resources. If we are looking, for example, age of production, the late winter and early springtime, this is the critical period in the agrarian society. Why? Because the quantity of the stock, it's expired. Therefore, a fasting, not only, for example, turning the spiritual world, but saving the resources. And the fasting, very important from this point of view. And, for example, Friday and the fasting period, only one kind of the meat which possible to eat, fishes, no more. And moreover, on the time of Little Ice Age, I spoke about the Little Ice Age, this was the last cold period. On the time of cold period, majority of European agrarian area decreased the productivity. Why? Because the cultivation area is shortened and the cultivation period similarly. The agrarian output decreased except Low Country. Why? Because the fishes which lived in the northern area of Northern Sea, Norwegian Sea, moved southward. And a fishery fleet of Low Country and England in a critical period. This is the period of geographical discoveries. The population of Europe underfeed, because the continental agriculture output decreased, except a coastal area of Northern Sea, because the success of fishery fleet increased. It's very good example, a climate change, some area down, some area up. A maritime population, sailor, dock worker, it's well fed because the fishery very successful. It was a key population. Okay, and maritime trade, fishery fleet participated not only fishing but the international trade too. And very important, as I mentioned on the time of lecture about medieval European economy, that Low Country, the primary producer, the peasant of Low Country, specialized to the production of cash crops. Cash crops mean it's possible to sell on the market. For example, how the name is, a hemp. It's a raw material for industrial textile production. A flax and how the name is, hope, which is the raw material for brewery making a beer, and the tulip bulbs, which very special trade based on the flower market, and making of cheese, which was the theme of Middle Ages. Therefore, it's a very special situation. Even the peasant, the staple food like wheat, like meat, bought on the market. Good. This is good example, good map. Netherlands without dikes, without water regulation. We can see even Amsterdam or majority of continental area of recent Netherlands should to be underwater. And the coastal area should to be on the time of Utrecht, which is one of the most western city of recent Netherlands. The contemporaries realized this is an artificial country. This is not a normal country like France, like Spain, like Hungary. Ustaritz, for example, it's a traveler of the 18th century, wrote half of the country is underwater. It's true, should to be underwater according to this reconstruction. Look at, for example, other contemporaries from the 18th century. Holland is a barren country. Barren country. I enjoy the life in the Netherlands. Why? Because a little bit same like the great Hungarian plain. It's a plain. I remember when I lived in Switzerland, for example, I lived in the student hostel. It's 17th level, how the name is, 17th stairs on the buildings, and started my career on the fifth floor, and it's closed the horizon, and I felt the claustrophobia because like a closed people, and the director of the student hostel offered to me to the 17th century. In the 17th century, it's crazy, 17th floor. I moved to the 17th floor with open balcony. I lived acrophobia. There is it's a calling of death that necessary to jump because it's open balcony. It's unbelievable. Okay, but in the Netherlands, no such problem because it's a plain area. Okay, Lodovico Guardini wrote in his diary in the middle of 16th century, the land is low-lying. All the rivers and the canals are enclosed by dikes so that they do not flow at the ground level, and in many places on sea with great astonishment that the water is higher than the land. I remember my impression was the same in the beginning of 21st century when I lived in the Netherlands. This was the walking level, and the water level inside of the dike 2 meters higher than the people who walking around the level. Why? Because if we are looking at this country landscape profile, this is the deep area. This is the dam, and this is the water level of Northern Sea. Somehow necessary to push up to the Northern Sea, the water inside of the country. And the construction was the artificial channels and the windmills. And the most important function, I remember that I spoke about a former time, about the function of the windmills, not the grinding of cereals, but the water pump is pushed up by level, the water. For example, this is the level of channel. Here, a windmill, pushed up. Each changing level one windmills, and finally, it's flow back to the Northern Sea. Therefore, a huge number of windmills on the landscape of the Netherlands somehow was the drainage, the water regulation, the drying of this area. It's an artificial country. It's not possible to believe. I remember when I arrived to my fellowship by car, I was very surprised because the ships grazed separately. It's very surprising because in the ships there is an instinct of herd together. It's grazing together. But when I approached to this area, I realized the grazing land, it's a new drainaged grazing land, which means this is the channel system which drainaged this area, and the shepherd, and this is the grazing land, like a chess table, and the shepherd with boats took two small islands, one or two ships, and on the evening collected back and transported to the stable. Therefore, no option for the ships necessary to graze on the small island. It's artificial work, not comparable with the continental practice. Good. This is the dunes. Dunes on the coastal area of Northern Sea. The grass which cover these dunes, it's very special form of the grass, because majority of plants not able to use the salt water. Not able. If, for example, you pour salt water to the normal plants, it's die, it's destroyed. But on the coastal area of Northern Sea, there is a special types of the grass which able to use the saline water. And the first form of saving the coastal area, saving the grass cover on the dunes. This was the first step. Okay, look at the Dutch miracle. Because everybody, even the contemporaries on the Middle Ages, look this area as artificial country, and the people who are able to live in the artificial country. This is the Dutch miracle, made a Dutch miracle, or the Dutch secret. Very small area. If we are looking at the Netherlands, it's a little bit more than 40,000 square kilometer, and approximately 20% of this area underwater continuously, necessary to drainage year by year. Continuous effort necessary for saving inner continental area. Population of country between beginning of 16th century and to the middle of 17th century grow from 1 million to 2 million. It's unbelievable performance. Why? Because half of the country lived in the cities. Half of the country lived in the cities. Half of the inhabitant of the country lived in the cities. And very important to mention, before Industrial Revolution, cities, traditional cities, not able to survive without immigration. Why? Because in the cities, you remember this model that in the rural area there is a couple, husband and his wife, and period of fertility started in the 14 years and closed around 40 years. And on this period, potential fertility is 12 births, and because half of the birth close with the death of baby, therefore there is a chance for triple by generation by generation. This is the rural area, generally. But in the city, in the urban area, the fertility much lower. Why? Because in the cities, trajectory of the life basically different. Appeared education very early, and if children participate in the education system, not working on the field, it's not income but expense. Therefore, for education, for the higher living standards, a rate of fertility in the cities under 2. Therefore, without immigration, in artificial situation, if we close one city, no immigration, no emigration, for some generation, the population should disappear. In the case of, in the period of Industrial Revolution, changed this situation, and the modern cities able produce higher fertility and able to grow from inner resources. The traditional cities not able to grow without immigration. Therefore, that population of this country, which have urban people, able to double for 1.5 century, this is the important and good indicator that this city was a target, main target of immigration. Everywhere the people who were mobile moved to the direction of the Netherlands. Okay. Dutch agriculture. I spoke about the Dutch agriculture. It's a special agriculture. Added values in the agrarian production very high. For example, very famous Dutch agrarian historian Jan de Vries wrote about the Dutch agriculture, the capitalism grow out from the soil in Holland. High farming, very important, the high farming. Which is the high farming? A sophisticated and scientificized farming. Not only, for example, sowing wheat and harvesting some months later. No, a sophisticated, changing rotation of different plants and so on. So my question, in which area appeared first time the high farming? Not in the Netherlands. Netherlands was the second one. But which was the first? The innovator, my guess. England? Hungary. You are very polite. If necessary, letter of recommendation for Hungarian citizenship, I will write. I offer. Okay? Not. China. No, in Europe, sorry. In China, of course. But the citizenship to China is very attractive, similarly. Which area? Very high density of population. Very rich people who are able to pay, because the high farming is much higher the cost of. Italy, northern part of Italy, of course, because the rich people who living in Florence, living in Venice, living in Milan, living in Genoa, able finance, and if somebody visited in Italy, the potential arable land is very limited. Therefore, the value of arable land is very high. Therefore, developed even the Middle Ages a very sophisticated agrarian system. No grazing land. No grazing land, only on the mountain area. On the valleys and the plain area, each plant, each estate used the most efficient manner which possible. The second one, low country, and the third one, England. But in England, sophisticated the high farming and came back in the 19th century. Okay, high farming. Cash crops, flax, hemp, rape, hops, tobacco, dye plants. If possible, I told to you, there is a very special grass. It's named a pastel. A pastel. A pastel, it's a very special color of painting. This is a grass. This is a grass. If somebody made a pastel painting, it's very high value, very high added value. Added value. Because it's a secret, it's industrial secret for the dye plants maker. Okay, dairy farming, as I mentioned, Middle Ages and the traditional time, one of the most important things of the contemporaries are huge cheese and commercialized countryside. Therefore, in the living standards, no so great differences who living in the urban area and the country yard. Okay, fishery. As I mentioned, the fishery, it's a key factor of Dutch economy. United Provinces, as Denis Diderot, one editor of French encyclopedia, wrote United Provinces are Egypt of Europe. English pamphleter wrote the North Sea is the Academy of the Mariners and Pilots of Dutch rebels. And the fishing industry, we can divide it 4 different parts. The first one, inshore and inland waterways, the smallest fishes, and the most important and the very important fishes, which was the most important pillar of great Dutch success of the Golden Age, the herrings. The herrings. It is named the great fishery. Later I will speak about cod fishery. Cod fishery is other fish species on the Dogger Bank and Iceland, and the whale fishery. And very important and very interesting, in the early Middle Ages, 2 nations in Europe specialized to the whale fishery. The Dutch, and which other European nation specialized to the whale fishery?
Iceland.
No?
Swedish people?
No?
Spain.
No? But it's quite close. Basque. You know the Basque people. Basque. Living in the northern part of the Spain. And the Basque, it's a mysterious people, most mysterious nation, Basque. Basque people. Basque language, no relatives. Whole of the words. Therefore, if, for example, Hungarians speaking about we are alone, our language is special. No special. We are a lot of relatives. For example, Estonians, Finnish people, a lot of small population in Siberia. But in the Basque language, no relatives. No relatives. Minimal knowledges about the background and the history of the Basque area, which is the capital of Basque area, Bilbao. Atletico Bilbao, we turn back to the football, which is my favorite. Athletic Bilbao playing 2 kinds of football players, Basque and foreigners. Never Spanish, never Spaniard. Basque and any others. No Spaniard, never. Okay, but it's a local specialty. And whale fishery. Okay, but turn back to the great fishery, which is the herring fishery. Probably you know this kind of the fish, even recently very popular, you can buy in the small tins. If you will visit to Amsterdam, in Amsterdam, herring, it's very interesting, not restaurant meal, but fast food. You're walking on the street, there is a small hut. In the small hut you can buy a fish sandwich. It's very simple, very simple. It's a dark broad or white pane. Yeah, or broad. No any other, some onions and very delicious herring. Why so interesting for the history of Netherlands? Because if we calculate the whole of the fleet of the Dutch fleet, approximately 80 great ships, great vessels, and 1,500 specialized only herring fishery. 12,000 fishermen working on these vessels, and year by year it's caught 50 to 100,000 tons of salt and smoked herring. Therefore, on the time of early modern time, on the time of Little Ice Ages, when majority of European population, the continental population, in the period of shortage. Why? Because the classical continental agriculture. There is a crisis, shortened the vegetation period and shortened the area of cultivation, except the coastal area, because in consequence of climate changes, the great quantity of fishes from Norwegian Sea moved southward, even the bays, and increased the quantity of caught herring unbelievable manner. One decade it's moderate, and the next decade in the middle of 16th century increased. Not only a well-fed Dutch population, but only exporting. Not by chance, the contemporaries named this period Dutch gold mine, and the herrings named to the gold of the Netherlands. Not by chance, the first international declaration of ambition of England concerned in the act of navigation in the middle of 17th century concerned to the low fishery of herring on the water of England. Okay, look at the fleet of the Netherlands. The great international ships, quantity of great international ships, estimate to 6,000 ships. Why so important? Because if we are leaving whole of the European fleet, it means a French fleet, English fleet, a Spanish fleet, any other fleet in Europe, record 12,000 large commercial vessels. And half of whole European fleet sail under Dutch flag. This is the basis, this is the most important power of the Dutch commercial empire. On these ships worked 48,000 sailors. And very important, one of the most important source of success of Dutch Republic that controlled and checked the raw material, the area of raw material. You remember this is the area of raw material, Baltic area. Timber for construction of vessels, for shipbuilding, the highest mast to the sailing system, and the most important quantity and the best quality of tar. You know which is the tar. It's insulated the body of the vessels. Not by chance, on the century of herring, it's started in the middle of 16th century and closed in the middle of 17th century. More or less 100,000 tons per year caught on the Northern Sea. Sardan was the core area of Dutch shipbuilding, very famous place. When Peter the Great, Tsar of the Russian, traveled to Western Europe and would like to picking the most important information concerning the modernization, not only visited to the Sardan, but participated a very quick education for shipbuilding maker, and receive a license that Peter the Great received a license, carpenter of ship. Probably not so strict exam, after the not a strict exam, but finally he visited, and very important for him making a license. Okay, and very important, Dutch people, it's a very important personal character of Dutch population, Dutch nation, rational thinking and saving money. Therefore, everything there is a second-hand trade. Not only for the clothes, but even in the ships there is a second-hand trades. Okay, this is the diagram about witch hunting. Basically, this is the demonstrate the success of Basque and the Dutch whale hunter and very important to realize, some years even 2,000 whales killed year by year. My question, if you know how used the body of whale, why so important hunting of whale?
Oil.
Oil, but how use the oil, the whale oil? Lighting, because no bad smell. Any other oil, it's very, very bad smell. If somebody, for example, that you have a castle, not recently, later, you will buy a castle. And you would no electric supply, therefore necessary to make a light somehow. If you, for example, if you use a tar lighting and any other, it's very bad smell. But it's somehow a luxury lighting, a whale light, for example, lamp. It's luxury, no bad smell. Okay, one, other one. A bones of whale used, for example, to the luxury cloth making. For example, it's affixing some part of the, and they made some sculptures because it's very special color of the bones of the whale and very flexible for using a cloth making, for example, skirts. And for example, on that time it's very popular, the large skirts. And the form, how the name is, inside structure made from the whale bones, which very flexible and easier a little bit moving in the whale fixed skirts than any other. Okay, whale hunting. Fly boats, this is an innovation of Amsterdam. Why so important this innovation? Because a carpenter of Dutch shipbuilding factory constructed buildings, ships which much easier navigate than any other ships in Europe. Therefore cheaper the using and much easier to navigate, much easier and quicker, faster international comparison. Okay. Next demonstration about the ships.
A cruise in the Netherlands with my friend Vanessa, with a stop in the city of Lelystad. I'd never heard of it before planning this trip either. It's a completely modern town in the geographic center of the Netherlands, with, to me, one outstanding feature, the Batavia shipyards, where they've built a replica of a VOC, that's the Dutch East India Company to you, 17th century merchant trading ship. These are the ships that brought silk and spices and other treasures from the Far East and built the immense wealth of Holland that funded a huge cultural explosion called the Golden Age, and all those warehouse-lined canals of Amsterdam we still love today. I didn't sign up for just another museum tour, though. I had a mission.
It's been a long, lifelong dream of mine to fire a cannon. Yes. It just sort of makes an evil stink in me, but I really,
So this is
this is my day, yes.
Yeah, it's about cannons.
Oh, yeah.
This is actually a trainer, not a warship.
Right.
But these ships this one had 32 cannons on board. So
32?
Want to have a look inside?
Yes, we'd love
Go
to.
there.
Hard to imagine 5,000 ships like this over 200 years sailing to Asia in a truly groundbreaking endeavor. The first multinational corporation in the world brought back 2.5 million tons of goods in that period and became the most valuable company ever in the world, worth an estimated $7 trillion by today's currency. No wonder they needed cannons for protection.
Did you need 8 people to fire it, or just 8 people
No,
to
to fire it, you need the people to move the cannon. Because this one is rather heavy, like 2,000 kilo each. And you have to take it inside to load it.
Right, and then push it back out.
And then push it back outside, and this ship is lying still, it's not moving at all.
Right.
And you can imagine when the ship is rocking in heavy weather, and you have to, well, you need at least 8 men.
That would be hard on your toes.
It sure does. The charge is collect gunpowder. He puts it into the gun, he turns the spoon half turn, pulls it back. He uses kind of ram to bring it all the way down underneath that little hole, well, you put the cannonball in. Yeah, it's a nice day, so we fire on the planes.
Okay. World peace.
Yeah, it's peaceful. Yeah, you never can say top of it. We have to bring the gunpowder exactly underneath this little hole. So this is where we're going to put the fuse. The only thing we have to do is get the gun outside.
Okay, do I have pull?
That's also part of the dream.
Okay, pulling the ropes. I can pull. Okay.
Okay.
Take it over.
You ready? Okay. Ready? Come on. Okay. You're only missing an enemy, but okay. It's,
Oh, there must be somebody up here we don't like.
that's just somebody passing the by. Okay, what we always do, we can shoot by the drums,
Okay.
and after that, don't rush the trumpet. Okay, then say goodbye to everyone you like.
It's so nice knowing you. Yes, we're ready.
Okay, ready to fire?
Ready to fire.
Okay. Don't.
That was very threatening.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
The real battle situation wasn't so funny, and it's very important. The first generation of battle on the sea, for example, the rival and the enemy battle with the cannons would like to destroy the mast. Destroy the mast. It's not so easy because it's a moving target and it's a good shot. Not so easy. But later, in the middle of 16th century, English sailor realized much better strategy, shooting a little bit under the sea level. Why? Because much easier to shoot a large body of the ships, and in the case of good shot, whole of the ship is drowned. Therefore, change the strategies. And this is the one great advantage of European sailor in the battle with the Chinese, with the Indian, with the other freed Muslim ships, and other innovation that, with help of very sophisticated sailing system, European ships were able to sail in front of the direction of the wind. It's contradiction. Because the sailing system, how you sail in front of the direction of the wind? Because it's huge surface and changing, very sophisticated changing of the sails, the European vessels able to sail in front of, this is the direction of wind, but not in front of directly, but with the help of zigzag, 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 zigzag navigation. But in the battle situation, one vessel able to unbelievable moving, navigating in the battle situation, comparison any other battle, is great advantage. Not by chance, if international comparison with the Chinese, Indian, and the Muslim civilization, only two elements most developed Europeans: firearms and navigation. No any others, no any others. Okay, jump back to the history of Dutch Republic. If we looking at structure of European urban network, quite similar to the 11th century and quite similar to the recent situation. Two core area, northern Italy and Low Country. Even though, as I mentioned at the beginning of this course, when I show to the 11th century urban area, that this is the reason. This is the reason of knowledges, historical knowledges. It's open the horizon, open the depth of point of view and the depth of cognition. Look at this picture. Not by chance, the new core area came from the most dense urban area. Good. If we are looking the level of urbanization, this is on the coastal area over than 40%. If we are approaching to the continental direction, the urbanization level a little bit decreased in the 15th century. Okay, if we are looking at diagram of urbanized area, highest population in Europe reached to the early modern time 50 person per square kilometer, and 50 proportion to the 16th century of Dutch population lived in towns, and the Dutch cities together formed a power block. A little bit this is the same situation even recently, because if you will visit to Amsterdam, recently the closed area of Amsterdam, not with the outskirts, the closed area is 500,000, even recently, 500,000. And whole, the great Amsterdam is a little bit less than 1 million. Not by chance named a global village, But in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, there are 19 cities over the population than 100,000. It's very, very dense urban area. Half of Hungary, but the population 15 million. It's very densely populated area. And leading city, Amsterdam. Divided the labor, this very dense network. Industrial center was Leiden, Haarlem and Delft. Commercials of the Rhine valleys, it's been a Dutch, German area, Dordrecht. Fisheries, Enkhuizen and Rotterdam. And political capital is Hague. It's very special, very interesting, because in the case of the Netherlands, there are two capitals. The government located to Hague, but any other activity to Amsterdam. Therefore, if you open a geographical or political guidebook, one kind of the guidebook, the capital is Amsterdam, other one is a Hague, and some other guidebook, Amsterdam and The Hague. Therefore, not easy to define the function of these cities, but The Hague, a little bit same than the situation of Washington in the history of United States. No any other function, only the political function. This is the location of the government and the ministries. Okay, next one. Yeah, I inserted these short movies because very important to take impression about the life and the nature of this artificial area. Because I remember when I was a fellow of the Netherlands Institute of Advanced Studies, and I visited in Rijksmuseum. In a former movie, you can see some picture and the paintings from the Rijksmuseum. And it was unbelievable, because majority of building in Hungary, even in Szeged, constructed in the 19th century. And visited in the Rijksmuseum, and I watched one paintings about one buildings. And I left the museum, two corners, the same building in the same condition. And on the painting, there is a continuity. Unbelievable thing. When I visited in Florence, visited in Venice, visited in Paris, a continuity, a depth of history and stratification of the historical experiences. Unbelievable. Why? Because I came from the peripheral area. Here, the oldest one is constructed 1 or 2 centuries before. In the more happy area of Europe, it's constructed 2,000 years ago. Okay. But the death of culture in the case of Chinese student, it's more deeper. Okay, good. Next one.
Cafe. Haarlem, capital city of North Holland, has everything you would want in a quaint Dutch town, including canals, cafes, markets, breweries, churches, and plenty of bike paths. Taking a small boat tour is a great way to see the city, learn its history, and simply relax as you cruise the calm waterways of the many canals. The city of Haarlem is home to 14 museums, including the Tailors Museum, the oldest in the Netherlands, open since 1784. This museum has something intriguing for everyone, including art, minerals, fossils, coins and metals, scientific instruments, and much, much more. In central Haarlem, you will find the Grote Markt, a car-free market square, and home to St. Bobokerk, an impressive Gothic-style church. Its interior is magnificent, without being overly gaudy. The organ inside the church is its most renowned feature. Built in the mid-1700s by Christian Mueller, it was the largest organ in the world at its time of completion. Mozart himself played on this organ when he was just 10 years old, and it was also made famous by its mention in the 1851 book, Moby Dick. Time your visit to Haarlem right, and you might be able to hear this organ live and in concert at one of many free performances held each week. Do you like beer? Well, even if you don't, you'll want to stop by Jokenkirk, a historic church that has been transformed into an operational and contemporary brewery, earning the honorable title Best Looking Bar in the Netherlands in 2013. If you visit Jokenkirk on a Sunday during the summer months, you will find locals and visitors alike enjoying scrumptious entrees from a collection of food trucks outside. We suggest spending at least a few days in Haarlem, and if you're looking for a place to stay, we recommend Malt's B&B Hotel. Malt's offers the personal touch of a bed and breakfast with the modern luxuries of a hotel. We feel that the best way to see and experience Haarlem is by foot, as this allows you to slowly take in its charm, character, and surrounding beauty.
Yeah? Not by chance, one district of New York named Haarlem, because this city founded by Dutch settlers, and the original name of New York was Nieuw Amsterdam. It's a new Amsterdam, but later changed with the English people, and only some district saved the origin and the name of founder. And this is Gouda. You know the Gouda cheese. So calm country. enough for impression. And continue. How started the history of the Netherlands? Because, as you remember, this country, this area, historical geographical area, named a Low Country. But 16th century, age of Reformation and Counter-Reformation. And because Low Country is a very tolerant area, you remember the history of Antwerp, it's tolerate every believer, follower of each churches, Armenians, Muslims, different local new version of Christian the Christian religion, but which is the dominating church of Reformation? Which Reformation? Which Reformation dominate this country? Protestant is a category, but inside of the Protestant, there is a Lutheran, Calvinist, the Mennonites, and a lot of others.
Evangelists.
No? Because evangelist is a Lutheran, more or less. Calvinist, founded by Jean Calvin, a French people, and it's very special religion. Special religion. It's much more rational, but very interesting. Who are a Christian in the audience? Christian. Because a Christian, according to Christian tradition, there is two main Bible: Old Testament and the New Testament. And Roman Catholic Church, it's simplification, of course. Roman Catholic Church focuses to the New Testament. Life of and the story of and the message of Jesus. But a counter-reformation turned over much more to the direction of Old Bible, Old Testament. How? Look at, for example, the question of the poverty, the poor people. Which is the relation of New Testament to the poor people? Look at the story of Jesus. Jesus met with a rich young boy on the market. You know this story? And asked a rich young boy that how I can go to the heaven. And which is the answer of Jesus? Distribute your wealth. Because easier going through the camel on the needle than rich people going into the heaven. Therefore, the mental health condition the poverty. This is the spirit of New Testament. But look at the Old Testament. In the Old Testament there is a story, the same problem. The father, which somehow the synonym of the God, the father leave the household and distribute his fortune among 3 sons. And 3 sons apply 3 different strategies. The first one, digging on the garden, because it's afraid that losing this money. The second one, going to the restaurant and for entertainment and expire all of the money. And the third one, it's invest to the enterprises and double the money. And the father coming back and ask his sons. And only one of his sons proud, who increased the value of the fortune. And John Calvin cite, this is the mention of human, because the people who expire the fortune which receive from God, this is a sin, and change the condition, the point of view on the time of Reformation and Counter-Reformation to the poverty. If somebody poor It's not a condition going to the heaven, but this is a sin. This is a weakness of character. Therefore, necessary to improve somehow. Closing, for example, to how the name is, which kind of houses, working houses somehow. Closing to the working houses. And even recently, there are two conceptions to the poverty in the governmental policy. This is a condition of the spiritual health and necessary to help to poor people. And the other condition, the people who are not able to organize his and her life, necessary to punish for that. Okay. Very interesting, this is the Calvinism. And named Dutch Republic, it's a Calvinist republic. But my next question, next guess, how many percent of Dutch people were Calvinist? How many percent? 20%, only 20%. 20% of Dutch people were Calvinist. Even the Roman Catholic proportion much higher. The Roman Catholic is a 30%. But why dominated the Calvinist people? Because the richest member of Amsterdam's inhabitant, the richest merchant, were Calvinist. A little bit same situation like in American history, the WASP. You know a WASP? WASP. Everybody know? White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. This is the political class in United States. If we are looking the list of American president, only 3 presidents weren't WASP, White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. How many percent of American population white Anglo-Saxon Protestant? Like in the Netherlands. And why became this minority background of American president? But my question, which American president weren't white Anglo-Saxon Protestant? Obama, but very interesting, Obama a border case. Why? Because his mother, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and socialized white Anglo-Saxon Protestant kindergarten, elementary school, secondary school, college, and university. Therefore, according to socialization, he was white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And his father came from Kenya. No any connection to the southern Afro-American minority of United States. Very interesting, border case, because any other element of Obama is white Anglo-Saxon. Okay, Obama, one. Trump is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, but Biden not. Biden Catholic. 2. JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Irish Catholic, but any other from George Washington, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And very interesting, same situation. This kind of situation that one circle of political life direct whole of the country. It's happened in the case of Dutch Republic, and it happened in the case of America, United States. We starting a new chapter with formation of the Dutch Republic. Therefore, I interrupt, and we will continue in the next week. And I ask your patience for some minutes. I try to read the list of participants. Sorry for my bad pronunciation.